Hello and welcome to another informative show. Today we acknowledge the challenges being experienced by members of the disabled community. This is Jamaica Magazine and I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay with us.
Here's how we sign the alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sign with me?
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, December 3. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is urging citizens to end the use of violence as a means of solving conflicts. Mr. Holness asserts that though the enhanced security measures have been effective in quelling major crimes in many areas, there has been a sharp increase in the incidence of domestic violence.
Regardless of your circumstances and your situation, we have to learn to live good with each other and to resolve our conflicts peacefully.
The Prime Minister made the plea during a tour of the indigent housing program in Western Kingston on Saturday. He said government would be paying closer attention to the housing needs of citizens. This, he said, would come by way of an increase in the build-out of both social and affordable housing solutions.
The conditions in Rasta City are particularly disturbing and require urgent attention. I've also seen where the housing projects which were started in the 70s and 80s, many of them remain incomplete, and residents who were located in areas with the expectation that the housing solutions would be completed so that they could take them up, they still remain in those temporary structures in those areas, and the government has to complete those programs which were started. We have to complete the build-out of these areas.
Persons are being urged to get tested for the human immunodeficiency virus HIV in order to know their status. The call comes from Jamaica AIDS Support for Life as it reports that approximately 32,000 Jamaicans are living with the virus. Speaking on Get the Facts, Monitoring and Evaluation Manager Xavier Biggs says of that number, only 27,000 know their status. A further breakdown indicates that 18,000 persons with the virus were seen once, while 12,000 continue to access treatment.
That means that there are several points along the way that people are falling through the cracks. And every time a person does not get tested or a person knows their status and does not access treatment, then they create or could potentially expose others to the virus.
Mr. Biggs says the prevalence of contracting HIV is 2 in every 100 persons, and therefore testing is recommended every 6 months or every 3 months for high-risk groups.
HIV has no symptoms that are unique to it. If you think about having a flu or a fever, they all have, the same symptoms, and so there is no telltale sign to say this person has these symptoms and therefore it must be that they have HIV.
Displaced sugar workers in Clarendon who intend to pursue farming are to benefit from input materials donated by the Kingdom of Morocco. The North African nation donated 48 containers of fertilizers as a gift to the island in support of the government's production incentive program. State Minister for Agriculture Floyd Green made the announcement on Friday at a job fair organized by the Heart Trust NTA to assist the farmers, their families, and community members from the Monimusk area. Mr. Green said under the Alternative Livelihood Program, valued at $45 million, provisions were being made for interested former factory workers to receive training in the areas of entrepreneurship, cottage industry development, and agribusiness.
I want you to take advantage of what is here and of this phase. The reality with our current present day reality is that not only should we be focusing on where we can get a new job, but we have to focus more on what sort of business can I set up that will bring in some wealth.
Jamaica's global services sector, GSS, is projecting 14,000 additional jobs in the local outsourcing industry by March 2020. The figures were released recently by the Business Process Industry Association of Jamaica, BPIAJ, at a JIS think tank. Marketing specialist Cheryl Newville-Crooks says more than 36,000 Jamaicans are currently employed in the sector. She says to achieve the targeted employment projection, the BPIAJ recently partnered with Compete Caribbean and the Inter-American Development Bank to assist 10 small businesses improve their operations.
Overall, the BPIAJ strives on being an enabling organization for the ICT industry, able to serve as a one-stop information and advocacy gateway for the global services sector, and is able to promote entrepreneurship and business expansion through its incubator program.
Mrs. Newville-Crooks says the global services sector is now rebranding its image from a call center to being more inclusive of high-end jobs.
We want to change the conversation around this sector among tertiary students and academia to attract better talent to the industry. We also want to encourage investments to the sector by consistently demonstrating growth and impact on society.
Meanwhile, persons working within the global services sector, GSS, are welcoming the vast opportunities provided through the industry for professional growth and development. Junior Operations Manager at ITEL BPO Smart Solutions in Montego Bay, Stacey Ann Robinson, says her outlook on call centers completely changed when she started with the company in 2016.
So I got a job as an agent, and then when I got there, the family that I felt, I thought that I could stay here for a while, but I said to myself, if I'm staying here, I don't want to be an agent.
Ms. Robinson was speaking at a JIS think tank recently. She revealed that through hard work and dedication, she was promoted from a customer service agent to a supervisor after a year, and then junior operations manager. And finally, starting next year, City and Guilds will be providing digital certificates to Jamaican students upon their successful completion of the program. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, says the digital certificate will be placed in a database where employers will be able to access the profile of the students.
As of next year, City and Guilds will be providing a digital certificate for each student. What that means is that the student will be able to access it anywhere, anytime on their mobile phones.
Dr. McLean was speaking at the recent signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the Education Ministry and City and Guilds. The Permanent Secretary says digitizing the certificates is to increase the portability of the City and Guilds certificate and cut printing costs. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching. Want to know the law pertaining to renting a house? What about the procedure if you're arrested? Or what is defined as corruption? Then click on the Ministry of Justice website. It has information on every law passed in Jamaica. The House of Parliament portal also has the more recent year's pieces of legislation. The sites are easy to search and the files are downloadable. Make access to justice your business. Know your rights.
Up next, the latest happenings out of the office of the Prime Minister.
New NIDS bill by March 2020. Government to pay special attention to housing stock, and 48 youth lauded for their service to Jamaica. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan.
Our people deserve the best, and this administration that I lead is committed to ensuring that the systems, processes, and technology are in place to give the people of Jamaica the best possible service.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness made that assertion during Tuesday's sitting of Parliament, where he announced plans to table a new National Identification System NIDS bill by the end of March next year. Mr. Holness said while the bill was being worked on, Cabinet had approved amendments to the NIDS Solution contract that was awarded to Productive Business Solutions Limited. That amendment will see to the execution of non-ID related upgrades until the new NIDS bill is tabled.
The government decided to focus on the initial ICT upgrade to address urgent needs at PICA and RGD. The remainder of the contract is to cover new systems and infrastructure upgrade and the implementation of the National Identification System. However, these activities will not be executed until a new National Identification and Registration Bill is tabled.
The NIDS project is broken up into two major activities. The first is ICT infrastructure upgrade, which accounts for 80% of the IDB loan agreement. There's also the national identification component, which accounts for 20% of the NIDS project loan. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has committed his government to providing housing to its citizens. Mr. Holness reiterated its pledge following Saturday's tour of the housing stock in Western Kingston. According to the Prime Minister, the state plans to provide social housing through the HOPE program, as well as affordable housing solutions from the National Housing Trust.
I've seen conditions which should not be allowed to continue. Really bad, terrible conditions actually. This area of Kingston, the Denham Town community, is probably one of the oldest established residential communities in Jamaica. These communities are in excess of 60 years old, some of them, particularly Midtown and other areas. And since then, there has not been any reinvestment in the repair, rehabilitation, or renewal of the housing stock. And I've seen buildings 100 years old, buildings that are about to collapse, but still yet they accommodate families. In some cases, 3 or 4 households live there. The conditions in Rasta City are particularly disturbing and require urgent attention.
The Prime Minister also used the tour to call for greater conflict resolution in light of an increase in domestic violence cases in the area.
And I'm urging the citizens, regardless of the conditions under which you live, regardless of the difficult economic circumstances that you face, that is not an excuse for living bad with one another. It's not an excuse for cutting up one another and throwing stones after each other.
The Prime Minister spent Saturday evening lauding 48 young men and women for their service to the nation. Awardees were drawn from 12 categories, including leadership, entrepreneurship, and media.
There are many youth on whom we can rely to contribute to stronger and more resilient economic growth in fulfilling our commitment to reduce poverty and boost shared prosperity.
Mr. Holness shared similar sentiments with the 2019 junior mayors. At Wednesday's function, which was put on by the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, the Prime Minister expressed the need for strong leadership.
An important part of leadership is to identify, groom, and expose, counsel, and mentor good leaders. And so I'm very pleased, very happy when I see this initiative coming out of the Ministry of Local Government and the municipal corporations. It means that you will have, in the years to come, indeed in the not too distant future, the human resources to continue your work.
And that's how we close out Jamaica House Weekly. Join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the Office of the Prime Minister.
Sign with me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Sign with me.
My name is Nadine Barrett and my son is Lance Barrett. Lance is a child with intellectual disability and he is also diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Lance was born a 7-pound 5-ounce baby, 3 months in his life. He wasn't talking, well, 3 months don't talk, but he wasn't crawling around, he wasn't sitting up, he would smile, and I know something was wrong. I can remember this one time, even to this day I spoke about it, tears come to my eye. A doctor came and she was like, "Mommy, this child not going to live to see 2. But my motto is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
I'm Nephi Shiva, and I'm a person with intellectual disability. And I used to also come to the School of Hope, Randolph Lopez School of Hope. And then I graduated at the age of 18 years old. But he keep on coming up by Jade to tell him that I can't get any work. And then after they call me and tell me that there's a position here for as a janitor work. First time when I just started, I used to think that I couldn't do the work before, but now I see that it's something that I can able to do, and like because it's use my hands is not really like using the brain.
Intellectual disability is characterized by significant limitations in both intellectual functioning and in adaptive behavior. For instance, in communication, daily living, and social skills. The disability usually originates before the age of 18.
One of the features of intellectual disability is that the persons will have below average IQ. Average IQ is about 100, right? Below average would be anywhere between 70 to 75 and below.
Intellectual disability is diagnosed usually by a psychological assessment. This is inclusive of intelligence, adaptive or behavioral and educational tools done by a clinical educational psychologist. These tools are standardized instruments used specifically to identify levels in the areas of intellect and adaptive behavior. In addition, interviews with family and other relevant persons are done to elicit significant history and other data about functioning related to the persons being assessed. Intellectual disability must not be confused with mental disability.
The important thing is that, and we have to be cognizant of, is that research says that almost 50% of the causes of intellectual disability are unknown. We don't know.
Right up until today, I sit and wondered sometimes. It's like I tried to go back to the first time I remember that I was pregnant and what I did or what I didn't do, or what. There's nothing that I can think of.
Intellectual disability is what they call an invisible disability. People tend to look for something physical. A lot of times there are no visible signs. And so parents tend to be in denial about the child not meeting the milestones, because they don't have a physical disability. So they tend to say, boy, nothing is wrong.
Believe me, it was hard. It was really, really hard. Because having a child that was normal, my daughter, and then having Lance, and to hear that he has a disability, I was wondering, how am I going to cope?
There is a perception that people with intellectual disability have no sense and they can't do things, so that's a myth. So intellectual disability is really just limitations in intellectual functioning. They will learn, but they will do it much slower.
Jade helped me a lot, because if it never for them, I wouldn't know what I would do.
This is a program that we manage in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Information and Youth. We are in 13 of the 14 parishes, so we do have a national network. We have 5 main schools with their affiliate learning centers. Students within this program, they are from ages 6 years to 21 years. So it's really students and youth. They want to be integrated, they want to be included. All they need are opportunities. They'd love to be involved in employment. They'd love to be integrated in their communities. They want other people to see them as valuable members of society. They want to be loved. They want to belong to groups as well. And so even leisure and community activities, they want to be a part of that. And if we're moving into the whole realm of including people, despite your challenges, that's the way we should do it in our communities.
You're not to always listen to what people say about a disability, because if you keep on saying that you have a disability, it's going to put you down, and it's going to make you downgrade yourself and say that you can't do anything for yourself in life.
I look at Lance as a normal child. Before that anyway, I used to limit Lance in doing things. I stopped all of those. I allow Lance to come in the kitchen. He bakes, he cooks, he makes juice, he cuts up vegetable. So the only thing that he does not do at home or anywhere else is walk as yet. And I put it as yet because I still have hope for my child.
Want more information on intellectual disability? Contact JADE. Their headquarters is at 7 Golding Avenue in Kingston. Also, you may call at 876-977-1118 or email jade@cwjamaica.com.
We are your future. I am your future nurse. I am your future electrician. I am your future nurse. I am your future farmer and also your future mechanic. I am your future contractor. Encourage me, enable me, include me.
Today we highlight a few of the challenges being faced by persons with a disability. So many persons who have a disability are highly successful, proving that, as with anyone else, greatness is achievable as long as opportunities and will collide. Next, we challenge everyone to be respectful to those with a disability.
Words can hurt, especially for those among us with a disability, each with their own condition, which may make them stand out, but should in no way have them left out. Hurtful language, intentional or not, can make people feel excluded and be a barrier to inclusion, equality, and equity. A disability is a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. A disability is not a human being or group of people. With that understanding, it is never respectful to say a disabled person or the disabled. In addition, do not use the term impaired. These words do not reflect the individuality, equality, or dignity of people with disabilities.
Persons who use wheelchairs, just that, you use a wheelchair. The wheelchair happens to be your legs, you know, and that is fine. The shoes help me to move around, and my slippers and so on, and the wheelchair helps somebody else to move around.
The word itself, disability, is acceptable as it identifies the condition of a group of people. But when referring to a person one-on-one, it is best to use his or her name. If you don't know the individual's name, the person first terminology is what should be used, because the person is more important than his or her disability.
So it's not the epileptic, it is a person with epilepsy, or the person with autism, the child with autism, and so on and so forth.
When you interact with persons with disabilities, being respectful in your language is not the politically correct thing to do, it's simply the correct thing to do.
People with disabilities or the person with a disability. Persons who use a wheelchair. Wheelchair user. Intellectual disability or intellectually disabled. Person with a mental health disability. Someone living with a specific disability or illness.
In addition, when talking about places with accommodations for people with disabilities, use the term accessible. Do not use disabled or handicapped. For example, it is proper to say accessible parking space or an accessible pathway. And consider this: if you refer to someone without a disability as normal, what does that make the person with a disability? Over time, the use of language and words describing persons with disabilities have changed. As we all seek acceptance and respect, we should do our best to keep updated on the terminologies that do not dehumanize each other. If in doubt, ask. That man or woman with a disability will be happy to tell you what he or she is comfortable with being called. This fosters respect, tolerance, and prevents unnecessary embarrassment. When speaking with or of a particular group of persons with a disability, choose your words wisely.
You've reached the final page of the magazine. Thanks so much for being with us on today's journey. Another Jamaica Magazine unfolds tomorrow, so come back same time on this same station. Until then, click on our social media pages for more informative features. While there, please subscribe to our pages and channels so you can stay in the know. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.